Hello, my name is Loriane and I am the co-author of the research paper Simulating Reality, Theatre Actors' Emotional Labour, Strategies and Outcomes. The interlinked topic in the research question presented has been largely understudied. The exploration of the emotional labour of theatre actors, the strategies that they use, and the strategies that they do not like, and the ways that they are affected can aid in amelioration of their well-being. To supplement the understanding that has been minutely explored in early studies on strategies used by organizations to control emotional regulation of employees to express desired emotions, this research seeks to gain a knowledge of how actors who in their field must constantly master emotions by dictation of screenwriters and directors and how they can do so effectively off and on stage. The paper raises awareness for the dysfunctional emotional regulation strategies that may result in unhealthy outcomes. The greatest demands for emotional labour, however, is probably experienced by theatre actors, which has little to no prior study surrounding the topic. A lot of the topic surrounding emotional labour is to do with service level roles and service level jobs. Emotional labour was first devised by Oxchild to conceptualize emotional demands from occupational strains for service providers. She reported that the management of feeling to create publicly observable facial and bodily display was what people did for which was sold as a wage and therefore an exchange value. A lot of the strains put on theatre actors is not studied, such as surfaced and deep acting, which is heavily utilised by theatre actors to mask emotions and to bring out emotions for the reward of an amazing show. 7 semi-structured interviews were carried out in July 2018 in an array of public settings such as park, places of work, cafes, with every actor interviewed individually. 5 interviews were conducted face to face, however, due to scheduling conflicts, 2 of the interviews had to be done over the phone. Once all of the interviews were done, they were transcribed verbatim by an outsourced company. The participants that took place were 7 actors who had been practicing acting between 3 and 42 years. The sample size comprised of 4 males and 3 females, with a mix of Caucasian, Black African, Black Caribbean, as well as an Asian respondent who lived in Greater London. Participants were aged from 22 to 62 years old. The actors were recruited through snowball sampling and they all knew each other. Well, some of them knew each other, which made it easy for us to have the sample size that we had.
So, as Lorian suggested, we in the present study focused on 2 main aims. So, the first one is focusing on emotional labor strategies that actors use on stage in rehearsal as part of their work to deliver the character. And second, we looked into the outcomes that actors reported experiencing as a result of emotional labor and emotional regulation they have to engage in their work. So in table 2, you can see 5 main themes that focus on emotional labor strategies. And I'm only going to highlight the key findings. So in the present, in this slide, you can see that theme 1 and theme 5 focuses on emotional labor strategies that do not seem to be particularly demanding or harmful for actors. So for example, theme 1 focusing on technical work, engaging in games, understanding the storyline, as well as theme 5, which focuses on others as a resource. And here actors talked about observation and emulation and reacting to stage partners, as well as the role of directors in emotional labor that they have to engage in. They do not seem as demanding as, for example, theme 2, 3, or 4. And I'm going to talk about theme 2, 3, and 4 in a bit more detail. So Theme 2, which we called Relying on Inner Resources, partially focused on what actors called relying on the past experiences. And some actors said that they have to intentionally remember some traumatic events in their lives to use those memories, those emotional memories on stage to recreate the feeling that they need to experience as that particular character. Now, theme 3, we called this theme Focusing on a Character, and it talks about how actors feel they have to really understand that character, build the biography of the character, and not judge the character no matter how negative or dysfunctional that character seems to be, which is also quite demanding. Now, the theme 4, which we call transformation of self, may remind those of you who heard about possession syndrome and speculations about possession syndrome, about how actors feel like they actually have to become a character. And this is where actors did talk about emptying themselves, first of all, and then adopting a character that they have to play on stage. So literally, trying to become that person. Now, in terms of the outcomes of emotional labor, we identified 4 main themes. And then again, we saw that in addition to some dysfunctional, I want to see outcomes, we have some constructive outcomes as well. So, for example, under theme 3, we identified several sub-themes that link to constructive outcomes. So actors talked about how emotional labor and emotion regulation help them to develop emotional intelligence and also achieve enhanced, better performance on stage. And then theme 4 focuses on peculiarities of the play and individual differences as factors that can modify the outcomes. So the relationship between emotion regulation and outcome is not straightforward, and we need to take into account those conditional factors that can change the relationship. Back on focusing towards theme 1 and 2, I just want to mention those kind of clusters of outcomes because they're very important, and they talk about how challenging actors' role and job may be. So theme 1, which we identified as professional personal identity measure, talks about how the line between personal and professional life among actors can be blurred. And actors even spoke how their acting partners can become almost like family members for them. Under theme 2, we identified several outcomes that we attributed to detrimental emotional effects. And one of probably the most concerning outcome that actors discussed was when the character seems to cling on to their identity and continue living even after the performance is actually over. It seems that actors may adopt part of the persona they played on stage and use that persona or that character in dealing with stress as a coping resource in the situation where they experience anxiety. So these are the 4 outcomes that were identified by the actors in terms of emotional labor. And let me just jump to 3 core concluding suggestions based on our research. So first of all, it's really important to look into actors training. It seems that some strategies that are still being used can actually be very exhausting to actors, and perhaps in addition to emotional demands that actors experience as part of their job, greater emphasis could be given on psychophysiology. Now, the second point is importance of access to counseling and psychological support service for actors. It seems that actors know how to get into the character, but sometimes they struggle getting out of that character. And finally, our suggestion is to particularly focus on amateur actors, inexperienced actors, actors in training, because they seem to be experiencing greatest demands and most negative outcomes. Thank you. Thank you for listening.